That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Stars at Noon, the 15th feature directed by Claire Denis, which premiered at the 2022 Cannes Film Festival, where it was awarded the Grand Prix, which it tied for with Lucas Don't Close. That's basically the second place prize. A24 is releasing it October 14th, 2022. Notably, it's Denis' English language debut. It's her second film that's premiered this year. She was at Berlin with Both Sides of the Blade, which won her Best Director, which we also reviewed. Released earlier this film, I think, through IFC. Yeah.
So I've seen Both Sides of the Blade. You said I've seen Trouble Every Day.
That's my favorite Claire Denis film, and I have showed you that.
I don't recall that one.
With Vincent Gallo and Beatrice Dahl, where she has a blood disease. She's basically a vampire, and they go to Alex Decca to try to cure her.
And this is based on a book which you read.
Denis Johnson's 1986 novel, The Stars at Noon, which is set in 1984 Nicaragua, which of course was a very strange place to be at the time. I didn't know that it was updated until I walked into the theater in Cannes that it's set during the pandemic era. Like that wasn't known prior to the premiere.
So the story's pretty simple. It's set in modern day, like during COVID. There is an American citizen named Trish.
Trish Johnson.
Played by Margaret Qualley. Mm-hmm. She is a journalist, kind of, I guess. She wrote an article disparaging the Nicaraguan government for like saying they're corrupt. So now she's stuck there. Like they're messing with her.
Like her passport has
been revoked or seized. Okay. So she's stuck there, doesn't know what to do. She's befriended a few sort of like shady people who are saying they can help her. And to make money, she's been prostituting. Mm-hmm. Okay, one day she goes to this fancy hotel where it seems like she frequents often to find like business.
The Intercontinental.
And she meets a guy named Daniel.
Mm-hmm. DeHaven.
Played by
Joe Alwyn.
They do business. She takes a liking to him, and then she recognizes that someone who he's been interacting with is like a shady person. There's a lot of like very vague, ambiguous, shady things happening. So describing is difficult, but essentially the Daniel guy he's British and he's in Nicaragua he works for an oil company and he's prospecting, but there are other entities that don't want him there. And where it kind of got confusing to me is Safdie, what's his name?
Benny Safdie.
He plays like a CIA person who's trying to get Daniel out of the region. Mm-hmm. And when they recognize that he is sort of interacting with Trish, they used her as a pawn and basically convince her to sign some paperwork. We don't know what it says, but it's something that gets him hemmed up. And in exchange, they'll give her an envelope full of money to presumably get out of Nicaragua. The end. Mm-hmm. I will admit that like the first 30 minutes I did not care for this movie, but then as you sort of broke it down, it did make more sense to me. You know, you have the context of reading the book as someone who went in completely blind.
But it is also a lot different from the book in that it's set today. A lot of the dialogue is actually taken straight from the book.
My overall feeling is this feels like an espionage, thriller, procedural love story all clumped together, and none of it is really that well done to me. I think the performance of Margaret Qualley is appropriate, but she seems like...
She always seems a little bit like Isabella Gianni. She's beautiful, and it's funny because you said that she reminded you of her, but she's always on the edge of like, oh, she could go insane in any minute, which Johnny was great at.
So I would recommend the film just for her performance because it is very interesting.
I was very much in the minority in the reaction at Cannes to this film because I really liked the film. But it also, you know, it's marrying like 1970s and 80s aesthetics. It's very Antonioni's The Passenger with Jack Nicholson and Maria Schneider. If you've seen that, it has a very similar vibe to that. Or you know his trilogy of La Ventura and L'Eclisse and I'm forgetting the other one right now. But also very, very much so Peter Weir from the 1980s, like The Mosquito Coast, and a personal favorite of mine, The Year Living Dangerously with Mel Gibson and Sigourney Weaver, where you have these two people, granted they're in Indonesia, but that have information and kind of have this vague romance that is made all the more passionate because they have to depend on each other, propinquity and circumstance, etc. I get that these two people, Daniel and Trish, are kind of, they're using each other. He has a gun that Trish sees early on in his hotel room. He keeps lying about. We never really get to know him because he's not telling her any inch of the truth. I like that she spends basically the whole film drunk. She's drinking rum in almost every scene.
I mean, her character's laughable.
It's laughable, but when you get to see her alone, she's always crying. She's on the verge of something. She's something that is about to go feral, and you see it in her. I love her look. She has that kind of Sigourney Weaver 80s hair. She's Andie MacDowell's daughter, so she has Andie MacDowell's hair. I just find her performance kind of fascinating in this, and I didn't care for her before that. She starred opposite Sigourney in my Salinger year, but I think she gets it right. I even like how she speaks Spanish because she's so impetuous. She's a brat. She's an imperialist, and she doesn't quite get like what kind of danger she's gotten herself into.
Yeah.
There's a cameo from John C. Reilly that I really like as well. It's notable her phone has been taken away, so she has to go to this internet cafe where she calls him out of desperation to get money, and he's like, tells her, "Don't ever call me again."
This movie feels like someone took like a real, I don't know how to describe it. It feels like a joke. Like someone took this, like this could be a real movie with like real dramatic acting, and then they made it like kind of like it's an alternate universe or dimension. I don't know. It just feels very weird.
Well, what Denis Johnson's novel is dealing with a very real situation with the Sandinista Revolution, the Iran-Contra affair, like all of those things, that we can immediately tap into, like, all that makes sense. I think, what's going on in Nicaragua today, which is kind of sliding towards despotism and, what's the word I'm looking for? There are, terrible things happening with the government there right now that, unless you're really kind of paying attention, you don't know about. This didn't film there. This filmed in Panama. So yes, I do agree it seems like that, but there's also just kind of this nebulous sense of danger all around if you're choosing not to distract yourself. I like, to me the title means this constant sense of surveillance, as in, the stars are up there at noon, but in the light of day we can't see them, but we're still being observed by them. I think Joe Alwyn's wardrobe is this white suit, is this marker of imperialism and colonialism, is also this great whiteout. Like he's not really even a character. The first sex scene they have, she has this line that it seems kind of like crass, but I think it is purposeful in how we're supposed to read him as a motif himself in the fabric of the film, because she says he's like fucking a cloud because his skin is so white, and that's what he's kind of is.
There's a series on Netflix called Worst Roommate Ever, and I believe it's episode 4 is about this man who is pretending to be Palestinian. He goes to Central America, and there's like deception, conning, there's like a weird romance and violence. I feel like that episode was more thrilling and engaging than this.
Well, I don't think it's supposed to. I don't think Claire Denis is trying to be thrilling. I think this is like in a bizarre art house film that's made of her own design.
Sure. I just think if you like weird, bizarre things, you could go into this movie, and if you clearly like this filmmaker and you read the book, so you're really invested in wanting to. So it makes sense to me.
I haven't read the book since 2018 because that's when High Life came out, which I also really liked, which starred Robert Pattinson, and this was supposed to reunite the director and star, but because of COVID and the Batman, he fell out of that, and then I was going to be Taron Egerton, and then it became Joe Alwyn. But this, a similar film and novel that I think were much less successful, both as a novel and a film version, was Joan Didion's The Last Thing He Wanted, which I didn't care for the book so much, and I didn't really like the Dee Reese adaptation starring Anne Hathaway. But this feels like, Stars at Noon feels like Antonioni kind of doing The Last Thing He Wanted, which I really appreciate. Tindersticks, who Claire Denis has score all her films, also comes in as an odd element to me because that gives Trish this kind of weird. She has kind of her own tune that kind of follows her almost, and it also reminds me of like early Abel Ferrara or maybe more Jim Jarmusch, but I don't know. There are just so many elements that I really, really enjoyed about it. And it is bizarre, and it is weird.
And it's long. It's over 2 hours.
It's 137 minutes. I appreciate ambiguity. I don't know. I just think there's...
What would you give it?
And it was scripted by Andrew Litvak and Leah Maisius, who's a notable director herself, and had another film at Cannes called The Five Devils that she directed that I did not like. But I maintained the score that I gave it out of Cannes, which was 4.
Oh, wow. I did not like this movie. I would give it 2 out of 5.
2?
But
Wow.
it really rubbed me the wrong way. It felt long.
Well,
it's so ambiguous. I didn't care about these people. There's a weird romance in the middle that feels like you're reading into it a lot. And then, like, I feel like I feel like if someone wanted to...
Situationally in, like, human behavior, I mean...
It doesn't feel real, though. It's too bizarre to feel like real people. So then it's just like I'm watching this, like, really thin lady with big hair act crazy and sell her body. And all she keeps talking about is Cordobas because she wants Costa Rican money. I mean, it really sounds like...
Because she can't... That money's only good in that country. So
no, I know, but it just... I thought the dialogue was... For the English, like the native English speakers between them was very strange. I don't know. This just did not...
I think Benny Safdie has a problem with some of the dialogue, but...
Yeah, that character and the actor portraying him was grating as hell. So, I didn't care for it, but...
that's okay. You were in the majority, but most people seem to not...
But I would recommend checking it out if you like the filmmaker and if you want to see her performance is one for the books, I think.
I think it's pretty good. I didn't really have much of an opinion of her before this. I remember when I read the book, I was like, this is a great role for a young actor. And then when she was cast, and I was like, oh, okay. But I think she's really enjoyable.
Anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.